Hi everybody. So in this video we're going to do an introduction to reading rhythms and how we would play those rhythms on the drum. Now I do have a snare drum right here, however I'm not going to play directly on the snare drum. I'm going to use a practice pad in case I need to count. You guys don't have the snare sound getting in the way. Now the first thing we see in our piece of music is called the clef. Now because we're playing snare drum, the clef doesn't matter too much. Normally we would see something like a G clef, which looks like this, or we'd see a bass clef. But these clefs tell us what kind of notes are going to be on the staff. However, since we are on an unpitched percussion instrument, our clef is going to be the neutral clef or the percussion clef, which just looks like two lines, just like that. So the second thing we see in our piece of music is called the time signature. Now, what is the time signature telling us? So the top number tells us how many beats there are in the measure. So the number of beats in each measure. Now the bottom number tells us what kind of note gets the beat. So this is going to be some sort of note value. So for now, let's just think of this as a quarter note. Here we have a measure of 4 quarter notes on the beat. So the time signature tells us there's 4 beats in this measure, which we can see. And the bottom note tells us that all those beats are going to be quarter notes. So they're going to look like this, a solid dot with a single stem. Now, counting. If we were to count this measure, we would count it just like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, of course, we would count that along to a steady beat. So if I were to keep a steady pulse, and if I were to count this out loud, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I'm going to put a little symbol at the end of this measure. I'm going to put 2 dots, just like this. Now those dots mean repeat. So for right now, I'm going to repeat the measure twice. So I'm going to keep a steady pulse and count again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and play through this measure twice through, this time with the snare drum, and I'm going to count at the same time. So here we are. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now notice that I went back and forth between my right and my left hand. That's called alternating. Alternating is going to be very important because when we start getting into faster rhythms, it's going to make it easier to play instead of playing it all in one hand. So we're going to go ahead and write the stickings. Now let me get my red marker. So the sticking is, if you ever see R or L above a piece of music for snare drum, that's going to tell you to use your right or left hand. So the R is right, the L is left. So our sticking for this, we're going to lead with a right. Right's almost most of the time is going to be on beat 1. So our sticking is going to be R, L, R, L on those beats. So I'm going to play it through once more. And this time pay attention to my sticking. Ready? And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that wraps up lesson 1 on reading music for snare drum, and in our next video we will discuss eighth notes and how to count and stick those as well.